Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar entitled DMR-QA Reporting. I am Christy Addis, and I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager at ERA. And our presenter today is Brian Stringer. This first slide is just a housekeeping slide to show you what the council page looks like. We've got the slides there, Brian's information, a short survey, resources that are available to you, and the question and answer panel. We ask that you put your questions into that panel, and we will cover them at the conclusion of the webinar. Our webinar today is on DMR-QA reporting. We will cover DMR-QA study results reporting, the role of contract labs, requirements of NPDES permittees, final graded reports, and EPA paperwork. Our key learning topics are to enter study results into EData, final graded reports and EPA checklists, and corrective action processes. Our speaker is Brian Stringer, the Proficiency Testing Technical Specialist at ERA. Brian has 28 years of experience with environmental chemistry labs and proficiency testing. His focus is to evaluate participants' results to help labs meet regulatory requirements with T&I, EPA, state, and international PT programs. Brian has been with ERA for 17 years. And with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Christy. Like many of you, I've seen lots of DMR-QA studies, but whether you're a veteran or a newcomer, the process can be complicated and there's always something to learn. As Christy mentioned, today we'll cover the topics listed here. These are also used in the title pages for many of the slides, just to help us keep track of our progress. Basically, we want to help you be successful with DMR-QA. We can do that by knowing the deadlines you need to meet, understanding the requirements unique to PT samples, accessing our EData reporting website, getting your lab results correctly reported and linked to your permits, getting your final graded results, submitting the required EPA paperwork, and finally, dealing with any corrective action that might be needed. There's a lot to cover, so let's get started. The full schedule is in the DMR-QA 41 announcement letter from the EPA, but these are some key dates. One change after we went to press, the address verification form was not really due back on May 21st, because the EPA just sent the letter out last week and they made a change. You now have until June 4th. You can see Study 41 closes August 27th this year. That's the deadline for your in-house and contract labs to link their results to your NPDES permit numbers. Please note, if you're using a WP study, you must report those results by the close of that WP study. We'll talk more about that on the next slide. Look for your graded reports on September 24th. Then start working on your corrective action if you had any not acceptable results. Permittees, you need to send signed copies of the NPDES Permittee data report form and the analyte checklists to your state coordinator by October 22nd. ERA includes a copy of the forms and checklists in the graded reports we'll send to permittees, so you can send those or the ones from the announcement letter. And lastly, December 17th, that's the deadline to submit corrective action reports to your state coordinator, along with graded results for retests performed by your in-house lab or contract labs. As you may know, the EPA allows the use of WP studies to meet DMR-QA requirements. However, it's very important to report those results by the close of the WP study you are using and not wait until the August 27th close date for DMR-QA 41. One nice thing about WP studies is you get a graded report within 2 business days. And these 6 studies here can be used for DMR-QA this year. That means we have 2 left to choose from, along with the DMR-QA 41 study itself, of course. The next thing we'll look at is some common errors, because you know how to run the tests every day, so you should get credit for it. Unfortunately, we all too often see a lab fail their PT simply due to calculation or reporting error. We want to help you avoid this and get the acceptable evaluations you deserve. First, I know you get a lot of paperwork, but please read both the general information for the study and the specific instructions page for each sample. Here you'll find storage requirements, dilution instructions, and reporting information. Next, always review the data reporting forms before starting your analysis. You'll see the concentration range for each analyte, which is our manufacturing range. And this can really help when you set up your calibrations or make dilutions. Also, make note of the units required for each analyte, such as milligrams per liter or micrograms per liter. This is also really important because they might be different than what your lab uses for your daily samples. Lastly, you only need to report results for the analytes that are tested in-house at your lab, are on your NPDES permit, and listed in the DMR-QA announcement letter. Next, when it comes time to submit your results, be sure to report on the correct line of the data reporting forms or on the EData website. This is a common error for the demand sample with these options. For solids, is it TSS, TDS, or TS? And wastewater coliforms, which covers total coliforms, fecal coliforms, or E. coli, and then even has choices for MF, membrane filtration, versus MPN, most probable number, as multiple well, or MPN multiple tube. Also, be sure to report results from the PT standards and not from any QC samples you may receive. Labels for PT studies have a green edge, and they have DMR-QA 41 or the WP study number on them. Plus, they have the lot number. Labels for QC samples have a blue edge. They list QC and the lot number. And this lot number should match the certificates of analysis you received with your samples. And lastly, be sure to report your results on time. It's a shame to get the right results only to miss the deadline. Okay, let's say you've run the tests and you're ready to report the results. First, go to our main website and click the red EData login link in the upper right-hand corner. Next, enter your username if you have one. If you don't, try your ERA customer number or your NPDES permit number, and then your password. If you don't remember your password, try using the Create Reset Password over on the right. That will send you an email with a link to follow to create a new password. If you just can't get logged in, give us a call and we'll be glad to help. Once you do get in, if you've previously set up a username, you'll be taken straight to the EData homepage, ready to enter your data. Otherwise, you'll see the following screen. This page shows the contacts we have for your facility. First, you'll want to delete anyone who no longer needs access to EData. And then, if you can see them on this little screenshot, notice the L for laboratory and the P for permittee under the word primary. We want to make sure there's at least one of these designated for each facility, as long as you are, of course, a in-house lab or a contract lab, and if you are a permittee. If you are a lab, the primary lab contact will receive study notifications, data entry summaries, and graded WP study reports. The primary permittee contact will receive the final DMR-QA report. If you don't see a role under your contact information, just hit the little blue edit pencil. You enter a username, preferably not the customer number, since this is for you only. And we don't recommend using your full email address, since those can change over time. You will use this username to log in the future instead of a ERA customer number or NPDES permit number. And one note, Usernames can't be changed. Next, you'll select a permission level. Administrators can add or delete contacts, enter data, view all the reports, basically everything on the site. You need to have at least one administrator, but you can actually have as many as you want. The data entry permission level allows you to do that, enter results, but also view reports. You just simply can't change contacts. After selecting Save, you should receive an email. It will have a link to follow to create a password. Passwords can be anything you want, and they can be changed down the road. If you don't receive an email within a few minutes, I'm sorry, just go to the customer number in the upper right corner of the screen and select Log Out, and then you can use the normal Create Reset Password function over on the right side of the screen to trigger that email. Now for the actual data entry. On the home page, select the green Start button for your study and answer OK to the little pop-up statement. Step 1 is named Enter Mailing Address, but simply review the information on the page and make any changes you need. Then you select the green Save and Continue button down at the bottom. You'll notice a lot of green Save buttons on the EData website. One note, this is your lab contact, and they actually won't receive the DMR-QA Permittee report unless they are also the Permittee contact. We'll cover the Permittee contacts later in the Retrieving the DMR-QA Permittee Final Report section. So after saving, you'll see the Enter Mailing Address button for step number 1 is now green and includes a little check mark indicating the step is complete. Now you're on to step 2, called Select Agencies and Add Third Parties. If you hold laboratory accreditation with your state, you check the box next to your state, or you can search for them under Add More Agencies. Please note though, only a few states allow the use of the DMR-QA study for lab accreditation. Most would require a WP study instead. So if you're running the DMR-QA 41 study, you may not see your state listed, and that's okay because most permittees are actually just using this study to meet their federal DMR-QA requirements. If you're in the DMR-QA 41, just check Reporting to DMR-QA Coordinator Only. If you're actually using a WP study, instead you simply check No Agencies Required, and then select the Save and Continue. You're now on step 3, called Enter and Submit Data. This screenshot is the enrolled standards list. It simply shows all your products for this study. The black circle with the X indicates no results have been entered yet for that standard. Well, we obviously don't want to spend all day just on data entry, so we might go a little fast here, but I hope we can cover the key points for when you're ready to enter your own results. And of course, if you need help while you're doing that, our team is available by phone or email, and that's listed at the end of this presentation. Now, just select any standard to get started. I picked pH. Then click in the Method box, not the Method Title box, and look for your method in that list. Most standard methods are listed 2 different ways. You can pick the method that includes the revision year right in the description, such as SM 4500 H plus B 2011. Or you can pick the one without the year. These are listed further down after the choices that included the year, such as SM 4500 H plus B. Selecting this choice will then populate the Revision Edition field, or Rev Edition field. Click in that box to select your edition of standard methods, such as 22nd edition 2011. Selecting a method from our list will populate the NELAC code and tech key. If they don't populate, you do not have to worry about those. If your method is not on the list, you can enter anything you wish in that box. One note, if you enter your own method, be sure to check the little box labeled either check if NELAC code is not required or NELAC code opt out. And that depends on the layout of the screen for a particular standard. Next, pick your analysis date from the calendar. And finally, enter your test results in the data point field. Like we talked about before, this is a really good time to be sure you entered your results for the correct analyte and take note of the units and the concentration ranges. You're actually done. Just select Save and answer Yes to the Return to the List of Standards question. Here's that same enrolled standards list. You can now see pH is green with a little check mark. That shows results were entered and saved. Step 3, the Enter and Submit Data step which you're on, you'll notice is also green. It has a check mark, and that indicates at least some results have been entered for this study. You'll also see the 4th step, Customize Agency Reports. It's always green, and it has that little dash because it's an optional step that most labs do not need to do. You can stop any time and finish your data entry later, or keep going. To continue, just select the next standard, enter your results, and of course, save. You continue until all your results are entered and every standard is green with a check mark. When you are finished, you can get a summary for your records. Use the Email Study Summary button to receive an email attachment, or the View Study Summary button to print a copy. Okay, you've entered your data. The next step is to link your results to the NPDES permit numbers. Permittees performing in-house testing will see a bright red button labeled Release Data to Your Permit. These results are for your in-house permit only. Just hit the red button and that's it. This will link all your DMR-QA analytes to your permit. Notice step 5, the NPDES Permittee reporting step, is now green with a check mark, so you don't even have to go to that step. One note, that red button stays there in case you need to use it again. Now, select View Study Summary again to see your permit number and the release tests this time. And you're done. Well, that is unless you're running tests for multiple permittees. Then you actually do need to go to step 5, NPDES Permittee reporting. So that takes you to this page. One note, please ignore the button labeled I do not wish to use this data for DMR-QA, unless that is you're in a WP study and don't actually have to participate in the DMR-QA, and you want to change the step to green just to show that it's complete. Otherwise, you always start over on the left under step 1. Depending on your requirements, you may be able to do everything on that step. Otherwise, you'll proceed to step 2 in the middle, and then step 3 on the right to complete the process. Now, permits from previous DMR-QA studies are on the left side under step 1. For new permits, search using the blue Add button. If you find the permit, great. Just select them, then the Add Permittees button. If you don't find the permit, please send us an email. Include the facility name, permit number, mailing address, and contact information so we can add them to our database. You are now ready to release your results. Use the various checkboxes and blue buttons at the bottom to complete the process. To start with, one option is to release all of your test results to a given permittee. To do this, check the little box next to the permit number. Select the blue Link All Analytes to Selected Permittees, and then select the blue Release Selected Permittees. You have now linked and released all of your test results to this permit, and you'll see the status next to them is now the green Released. You can do this for one permit at a time, or you can check the boxes next to multiple permits and link and release them all at once. The other option is to release only specific test results to a permittee. That would be based on the analytical work you do for them. To do this, click directly on the permit number in Step 1 to display your tests in Step 2. Check only the tests you want now and select Save and Continue. You will notice the red Needs Attention alert next to the permit number under Step 1 will have changed to an orange Analytes Selected. Now, select the button Add Permittee to Step 3, and the permit will now be listed over on the right under Step 3. In that column, check the box by the permit and select the blue Release Results to Permittee. We don't use the red Release Data to Your Permit button if you have one, because that releases all of your data to only your in-house permit. And you want to retain the specific selections you made a moment ago for this permit. The status for this permit will have changed to a green Released. Just continue until all your permits are at the Released status. The data entry summary you got earlier will now show the test results released to each permit. So you can get the new version back on the main data entry page, enter and submit data by selecting either Email Study Summary or View Study Summary. That pretty much covers data entry and releasing results to your permits. I know we covered a lot of ground, and it's hard not to be able to demonstrate this live in EData. But as I mentioned before, just reach out if you need some help. We'll now look at some of the other elements of the DMR-QA process, starting with the role of contract labs doing work for permittees. Permittees should notify their contract labs of their DMR-QA requirements using the checklists in the EPA announcement letter. Contract labs will order an appropriate PT study, often a WP study, to meet their lab certification requirements. They will perform the analyses, report their results, and release the results to the NPDES permit numbers for their customers using the process we just covered. Very important to link results to permits no later than August 27th, the close of Study 41. This ensures the results are included on the reports the DRA sends to permittees and to state coordinators. Permittees can see the status of their contract labs data as described on the following slide. Corrective action for contract labs are also covered in a few minutes. Permittees can log into EData, go to DMR-QA in the top menu bar, and select Review DMR-QA Data. When you get to this page, please review the mailing address and the primary permittee contact information, because this is the contact that will be listed on the DMR-QA permittee final report, and will receive that report by email if that's your preference. If you make any changes here, select Save and Continue. Otherwise, just select Continue. The next page you'll see will show the status of all labs who released data to your NPDES permit number. You can even see the list of those tests by selecting Review Analytes. And up until August 27th, the close of DMR-QA 41, you can uncheck any analytes you do not need and select Save. Shortly after that date, give us a call and we'll see if we can still keep the results off of your report. But if not, that's okay. You can use the analyte checklists to indicate to your coordinator if any tests are not required. When we release graded reports on September 24th, you'll see two green buttons on this page. One is Generate Report, and that's your NPDES Permittee report form and analyte checklists in case you need new copies. And the Permittee final report is your complete graded DMR-QA report, which also includes that Permittee data report form and the analyte checklists. Today, it seems a long ways off, but on September 24th, ERA will send the graded DMR-QA 41 reports to labs and permittees. We'll then send reports to the state coordinators the next business day. Permittee reports will include a copy of the following forms from the EPA's DMR-QA Study 41 announcement letter, where appropriate for your situation. First, the NPDES Permittee data report form, plus the chemistry microbiology analyte checklists and the wet analyte checklists for each lab reporting results. Permittees, you need to fill out and send a copy of the Permittee data report form and those analyte checklists for each laboratory to your state coordinator by October 22nd. Next, we hope you don't need to do any corrective action. Unfortunately, things happen, but all is not lost, and we can help with this too. If your contract lab uses ERA and receives any not acceptable results, we'll include corrective action information in your DMR-QA permittee report. If a retest study is required, contract labs are to send retest results to permittees as soon as possible and well before the permittee's own December 17th deadline. If your in-house lab receives any not acceptable results, we'll include information about this too, along with any order forms if we know a retest sample is required in your state. Retests might involve a WP study, a quick response PT, or a QC sample, and we can help you order the right one to meet your corrective action requirements. One other thing, QC samples or CRMs can really help with your troubleshooting and the whole corrective action process. Finally, permittees are to submit a corrective action report, including any retest results, to their state DMR-QA coordinator by December 17th. Well, that's really all I have for today. Please know that we have a variety of resources available on our website. Plus, our expert personnel can provide technical support for your analysis, help with reporting your results, or with ordering the right samples. Listed here are some of the ways we can help, including contact information for our various departments. I personally want to say thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us today. I hope it has been informative, and I really hope it will help you successfully complete your DMR-QA study this year. And now, I'll turn it over to Christy.
Thank you, Brian, for that informative webinar that you've just given us, and thank you so much to you in the audience who participated. We appreciate your participation in the webinar. Right now, we're going to switch to the question and answer section, so give us just a few seconds to get that set up. Thank you. All right, thanks everybody. We did have a few questions come in, and so we'd like to address those. I'll just read them off, and Brian will answer them accordingly since he is the expert on this topic. Let's see, our first question is, what if we don't have an NPDES and we have a WDR permit?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So the DMR-QA study is a federal program. It's required by the EPA. So in most cases, the paperwork that we generate that the DMR-QA coordinators expect would have an NPDES permit number. There's a number of states that have their own issued wastewater permits. So it is possible that you only have that, and if that's the case, I would give that to us so that we can list it on your account and link the data up to it. But I would also make sure that's the case. Make sure you also do not have an NPDES permit that you just simply don't use for state accreditation. I would maybe reach out to your DMR-QA coordinator and ask that. And that's it.
Good. All right, our next question is, can WP results be released to permit?
Yes, definitely. The EPA allows WP studies to be used for DMR-QA requirements. So the releasing is exactly the same. You would select the permits and link that data, release that data to those permits. So yes, absolutely. As long as, one caveat, as long as the WP study meets the time frame. One of the earlier slides gave that information that the WP study has to close before the full DMR-QA study closes on August 27th.
All right, so then our last study would be the, let's see, it would be the WP 317 that they would qualify for, correct?
That's exactly right. We just had, well, not just had, WP 315 closes tomorrow. So that one counted, and then we have two more, WP 316, WP 317.
All right, perfect. All right, our next question is, can you change the contact name that comes up when you search for a specific permit number?
That is a really good question. It is actually a very common phone call into our PT group here. We do not allow the contract labs, I guess is the way I would word it. If you're doing work as a lab for a permittee, we do not allow that as changeable on your site because we just don't want 2 or 3 different labs having a different person they deal with at that wastewater plant and go in and keep changing it back and forth. So we want to manage that. But it is very simple. If you either reach out by phone call and tell us there's a new contact at the plant, or if there's several that you are releasing data to and you have kind of a list, you can email us. The information is, again, on that last contact slide. You would either call and ask for the PT group or extension 2, or you can send that email. We can then make that change. We do rely on the contract labs in some ways to communicate to us. If we don't have a permittee as one of our customers doing in-house testing, maybe they don't do any testing, we never really hear from those folks sometimes. So it's great if the lab helps us keep our records up to date. We rely on that. So yes.
All right, good. Let's see. Our next question is, if your DMR-QA results are outside the concentration range, it will not be acceptable, correct? For example, if your BOD range is 120 to 240 milligrams per liter and your result is 250 milligrams per liter.
Interesting. I'm trying to think of what is behind that question. The reason I hesitate is the range that matters for whether your result is acceptable or not is literally called the acceptance range, the acceptance criteria, and that is always going to be much tighter than what you're listing there. So if your result is outside of the acceptance limits, of course it is not acceptable. That could be 125 to 145 or something like that. What I believe this question is listing is when we send paperwork to all of the laboratories with the samples, we list a concentration range. That's a manufacturing range. I don't believe it's 120 to 240. That may be, no, it's a little bit different than that. But that is our manufacturing range. We will always promise, I'm going to look up BOD. We will always promise we're going to manufacture a BOD between 18 and 230 milligrams per liter in the wastewater samples. And if this is where this question is leading, if the question is, for instance, we'll go ahead and use this range. If we manufacture it anywhere from 120 to 240 from a given one study to the next, so you at least know where your calibration or how to set up your equipment, you at least have a rough idea as to where the sample is going to be, and you get a result just above that, that does not necessarily mean that that result is invalid. It does not necessarily mean that result would be not acceptable. I say that because if we, for instance, manufacture and have an assigned value at the very top end of the range, for instance, if we make it at 235, then there will be a bracket, an acceptance range that could carry above that 240. It's hard to explain without numbers in front of you, but so if we make it at 235, the acceptance criteria might be 200 to 260 or something like that. So you could very well have a value that can pass that's above that concentration range. It just might make you, want to make sure your calibration and everything was working properly. If it's way outside of that range, then yes, that's something you won't be able to count on working. So how's that?
Yeah. Brian, just to follow up, does the EPA stuff have acceptance range?
So the NELAC or TNI creates the manufacturing range for all PT studies. That range might be some kind of a wastewater treatment plant range. I do not know, but I believe that's what they're referring to when they list the BOD range and it's listed that way. The concentration range is the key phrase there. I think they are referring to our concentration range. It's just that I think when we publish it, it actually is slightly different than that.
Okay, perfect. Our next question is, if using PT study, do we need to send our study report by email to DMR coordinator?
That's a great question. We, ERA, will send your graded report, essentially your results showing your reported values, and not just your in-house lab or contract lab, any of the data that's reported to us for your permit, we will send that to your coordinator, showing the acceptable, not acceptable. So you do not have to send the entire report onto your coordinator. What you do have to do, that's the one requirement they don't let us do for you. We try to do as much as we can for you. They do require you to fill out those forms from your EPA announcement letter. And again, we include copies of those forms in the back of the report we send to you. So when you get our DMR-QA report in, I think it's going to be September this year, you will only have to take those forms towards the back of the report and check a few boxes, sign the bottom of several of them, and that's what you send to your DMR-QA coordinator instead of the entire packet.
All right, perfect. The next question, I can cover this one. Can we get a copy of the presentation? Yes, we will send a follow-up email tomorrow, and there will be a link to Indirect so you can view it again. And then within the next week or two, we will have it posted to our website, eraqc.com. All right, our next question, let's see. An address verification form was mentioned. Where do I get this form?
Okay. That form comes from the EPA as opposed to us here at ERA. That goes to all of the NPDES permittees from the EPA, and they, as I mentioned at the beginning, they just sent that out last week, I believe. They started emailing and then possibly sending hard copies. So that announcement letter, it comes out every year, and the very first page, or after the cover page, I should say, has it's called NPDES Permittee Address Verification Form. It's simply a form that the EPA wants you to fill this out and send it back to them, back to your state coordinator, just to communicate that you got the letter and that your contact information is correct. So that form, to answer the question, that form is in the EPA's announcement letter. If you did not get your announcement letter yet, I would reach out to your DMR-QA coordinator. If you don't know who that is, if you have a report from us from last year, that would be in there. Otherwise, your state level official very likely is either that same person or they can get you in touch with your state coordinator.
Right, and Brian, we have the EPA's letter posted to our website as well. So I'm assuming people could download it from there, print off that verification form from that one and mail it in, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. It is, if we have that on our website, then yes, it's the second page in.
Yep, we do. So it's posted there on eraqc.com.
Yes, I think part of the idea is that they're verifying that they received the letter. So that
Correct.
would be a way for them to communicate and say, here's my address verification, but I did not receive the letter.
Yep, okay. Our next question is, my permit was just modified in April, adding 2 new parameters for in-house sampling. Would these be required to test in this round of DMR-QA?
There are questions that I don't answer or can't answer, and this falls under, we are helping facilitate this and get the labs to run their correctly run their PT studies. This comes more to your DMR-QA coordinator, truly. There isn't real documentation that shows that this year you're running a study to meet any permit requirements from the open of the study backwards or the open of the study going forwards. I believe that if your permit was modified in April because the announcement letters have just come out and there is plenty of time, that they would expect you to run tests for the new permit requirements. However, I can't say that that's the case in every state or not, because the DMR-QA announcement letter the study did just open on April 23rd. So you're right in that window of, I believe you would do it, but I would reach out to your state coordinator and ask that question. What do they want you to do this year versus what do you do next year?
Very good. Yep. Our next question is, do you have WDR, but solids need to be reported to the EPA? Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I apologize to whoever sent that in. I'm not sure what that means. I'm trying to think of what WDR means.
Okay. All right.
I get some of the good lingo from the wastewater folks, wastewater plants that do that work. I'm just not certain what that means. If a test given solids, if it's specific to total solids or total suspended solids, TSS, if that test, that analyte is listed on your NPDES permit, then you would need to run a PT study and report those results to meet the EPA requirement. That's kind of all I can answer that specifically.
Okay, that's good. Let's see, this next question is, we have 2 WWTPs and we receive an email to participate on the DMR-QA 41 study, just for one of them. What happened with the second one, WWTP?
Interesting. Again, I have to be clear that I'm not quite certain as to who you received the email from. If you mean that ERA only sent an email to encourage you to participate, to order your samples for this year's DMR-QA study, then that is possibly us just going through our list and sending, a reminder, friendly reminder to all of the permittees, and perhaps missing one of them. The key is, again, the EPA and your state. If you received an email with the announcement letter from the EPA for only one of the permits and not the other, you would want to reach out to your state coordinator and ask them about that. It's possible they are on a rotating schedule. Some states only require this every other year, every 3 years in one state particularly. So it's possible that that permit no longer meets a threshold of discharge or some other reason, but it's also possible that it just simply got missed, either, again, by ERA sending out our reminder or from the EPA. So I would reach out. That's a really good question. You don't want to miss doing it just because you didn't get something in email.
Yeah. So to clarify, I mean, it's just important if something doesn't match exactly with what you think it should, reach out to your DMR-QA coordinator, correct?
Yes. Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, the next one is, if the WP study is sent electronically through EData, then the DMR-QA package does not need to be mailed to the NPDES.
Let me see if the W. So if this question is coming from a contract lab, a laboratory doing work for an NPDES permittee, then the answer is yes. The WP study, if it's reported electronically into our EData system, and it's linked up, it has to be linked up to an NPDES permit or more, then we as ERA will send those results to the NPDES permittee as a DMR-QA report. The lab does not need to turn around and send that same information to the permittee.
Okay, perfect. Our next question is, what's the difference between the QC and PT acceptance limit?
Boy, we're getting good questions. I'm going to give a very short answer and then ask to have you reach out to our customer service team or our technical team, either by phone or email. You're referring to a certificate of analysis that you received with a QC sample here. And on that, we show two sets of limits. We show a PT limit, which is calculated the same way as the WP or DMR-QA PT studies are, to show you how would you be graded if this were a PT sample. Gives you a good idea as to what the requirements might be. We have QC limits that are often a little tighter, and those are calculated kind of based on real-world data we've received from labs over the years. So they are kind of set up to be the mean of all the results reported and a certain standard deviation level. So the short answer there is that's what labs are really able to meet, typically running those methods. And it's not, if it's tighter, it's nice to kind of hold yourself to that little tighter limit, knowing that that would then mean you're even more likely able to pass a PT sample when it comes time. There is some information, some footnotes down at the bottom of those certificates that try to describe those two. But again, if that's not clear, we absolutely will get you one of our technical folks on the phone.
All right, perfect. All right, so we used the WP 315 for our state studies, which closes tomorrow. Would we be able to send data for DMR-QA clients after the study closes? We have several clients that have not submitted their analyte list checklist yet. Or would we need to do an additional study?
You would not need to do an additional study. The EPA announcement letter makes a statement that by the close of whatever WP study you are using, that you of course report your results and then provide a list of the permittees to us as the PT provider. We know, the EPA knows, the coordinators know that especially with the studies from the beginning of the year, starting with January, those studies were allowed to be used to meet DMR-QA requirements this year. And yet the study closed shortly after that, or I apologize, the study didn't even open until April, and the announcement letter just went out with that checklist. So everyone understands that there's still communication that needs to happen. You absolutely can still use, we encourage you to release as many as you know, but if you need to, you will be able to add permittees, release those results next week, the month after that, all the way until the official close date of the DMR-QA study. That's August 27th.
All right. So you just covered a question that was, what date does DMR-QA study 41 end? And that is August 27th. So perfect.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So the next question is, we have an on-site lab and our PT results have previously been sent to California ELAP by ERA. What reporting changes can we expect to do now?
So most of this webinar and our discussion is related to states that are requiring their permittees to participate in the DMR-QA program set up by the EPA. There are a number of states that are listed in the announcement letter as opting out of this requirement because in those states they can meet their own discharge monitoring DMR requirements by simply being a certified lab or using a certified contract lab. So, and California is one of those states. You will not need to link your data to your permit, or expect to receive a DMR-QA 41 official EPA report from us. Instead, when I believe the question said they previously had the results sent to California ELAP, you also might want to reach out to the Water Resources Board, which is managing ELAP now or running that program, and ask if they need the results to go to, we have an agency in our system listed as California WRB, or Water Resources Board, and in parentheses we say DMR-QA. That's the name of the agency, which to distinguish it from ELAP as the lab certification. So if you go to your EData website, you will see that that is an option, and that is more the folks at Water Resources Board that are managing the discharge monitoring requirements, and you can check them as a box and we will send the results to them. I believe they also expect you to send your results as a permittee to the Water Resources Board. Please, though, reach out to your state contacts. They are the ones in charge of their program, and they definitely can guide you on what they need, what you need to do.
All right, perfect. The next question is there a simple way to include the subcontract lab results in the DMR-QA report if the subcontract lab uses EData?
I love these questions. They are addressing some very specific, sometimes can be confusing topics. The answer is yes. A contract lab, first of all, will enter their results for their study and release them to any number of NPDES permittees. The in-house lab on-site at the facility will also do the same. They will enter their results and link them up to their NPDES permit. The subcontract lab is no different. The subcontract lab who uses ERA will enter their results on the EData website as they would normally anyway to meet their accreditation requirements, and they can link those results, or our system calls it release, those results to that NPDES permit. And in doing so, we will generate an NPDES permit report, a DMR-QA 41 report for each permittee, and it will have all the data that any lab used us and chose to link up their data to that permit on our website. So absolutely, the subcontract lab, they use us, they know how to do most of that part, and they would just have to do that last step, and we'll include it.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's see. I think we've got a couple more questions. Let's see. Are there requirements for passwords?
No, there's not. We do not set up requirements to specific links or complexity. We want to leave that up to the individual to decide. Passwords are case sensitive, so always know that. But you can use whatever you want.
All right. And then the last question we have is, how can I tell if I have finished entering my PT study results into EData?
Yes. We do not have a big button that pops up that says you are done. I wish we did, but we don't, because so many laboratories have to enter results over time. They'll enter results one day, finish a new test result, enter it the next day, or even link up results to multiple permittees. So it's an ongoing process. Our system truly, if you enter a result and you save it, we have it, it's submitted. If you change that or add new results and save them, we have those. And once you release the results to any permittee, we have that. It's essentially submitted to that permittee. The only thing I always suggest is to go to that data enrolled standards list and get your summary. If you've made any change, you get that summary by email, study summary it's called, or view study summary. If you see it on there, we've got it. There's your confirmation that you're done.
All right, perfect. Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for attending and participating in the webinar today. And again, we will send you a follow-up email with the link to the webinar and then post it to our website. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Brian for his time and his expertise. And we wish you all a good rest of the day. Thank you.